dear televiewers of Focal Point in Cameroon, Africa, and the world, of course, at large. Of course, it is a time of the day as tradition that we stay glued to our television set. We stick to our television set on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at exactly 10:30 a.m. to have a grip of what Focal Point has installed for us. And of course, just like every other edition, this edition, of course, is very special because we will be addressing some cankerworm, some epidemic that has been eaten so deep into our societies. Today we are going to be addressing or talking about or dissecting the issue of female abuse or girl abuse. Of course, we have on the platform some legal luminaries that will accompany me in the 1 hour 30-minute journey. The 1 hour 30-minute journey immediately after the signal. We are going to be discussing violence against women and girls, and of course I have a group of persons that are joining me today on set. They are from the FIDA Association, of course, the International Association of Women Lawyers. They are here, and of course they will be taking us through this journey. We will together be discussing violence against women and girls. Mrs. President, I have on the platform Barrister Gladys Mbwa, the president of FIDA Cameroon. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It is a great delight to have you on set today.
My pleasure.
Sitting next to the president of FIDA. Madam, so I would want to know, what is FIDA all about? Maybe you want to throw a lamplight on what FIDA actually is out for.
Yes, Mabel, FIDA actually stands for Federación Internacional de Abogada, which is it is a Spanish acronym for International Federation of Women Lawyers. It is a non-governmental organization, and our objectives are to enhance the status of women and girls.
Okay.
And we actually attain our objectives through raising awareness on discriminatory practices against women and girls. We actually organize workshops, colloquiums, and we disseminate knowledge on laws that have promotional human rights norms, and we battle repugnant laws, and we actually fight for law reform.
So how successful has the association been over time?
Well, I think FIDA, the success is a household story, because FIDA has actually impacted on the lives of women and girls in this country in so many ways. We have actually encouraged women to take part in the political life of the country by actually training female candidates of parliamentary elections, municipal elections, and other elections. And we've actually changed the lives of many women who are vulnerable, victims of violence. We do pro bono work for women who otherwise will not be able to afford the services of lawyers. We actually assist them and follow up their cases before the law courts, wherever they may be appearing. We actually follow up cases of victims of rape. We've had cases where we actually had to transform a child's life by following up surgery for her and enrolling them in schools, and we've impacted the lives of thousands of women.
Okay, you've talked about violence, and violence, which appears to be the issue of today episode of Focal Point. We are going to be turning to you, Barrister Elizabeth Atemken. You are the vice president of FIDA. Maybe you give us a highlight of what violence is all about. There's so much talked about violence. What actually is violence?
Actually, thank you, Mabel. Violence against women and girls is actually a topic that has been in existence for so long.
Okay.
But if we go to the Cameroon Penal Code, you will not immediately find the word violence against women and girls. And given that scenario, what happens when we don't have provision in the penal code specifically on that? We fall on international norms. And the word violence against women and girls was first came up in 1992 on the Declaration on Violence Against Women and Girls. And this declaration was made against a backdrop of the numbers of women and girls who are victims of violence. And that declaration says the act of violence is any act of gender-based violence that is inflicted on a woman or girl because she is a woman, and that greatly impairs the enjoyment of these women and children of their enjoyment of various human rights. This definition also goes to add to the definition of violence by the International Convention on the Rights of on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is the Women's Convention. But the convention, which came up earlier, did not actually define the word violence. It defines violence as a form of discrimination.
Okay.
So the declaration, which came up earlier, was to also inform better the definition of violence against women. And this declaration, which itself it's not really binding, but following that declaration, this definition, and when you follow it up and then you add it to the definition in the Convention on the Rights on the Convention on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, you notice that it becomes binding because it's been ratified by states. And that particular convention actually states that this violence may be, it's any violence that's perpetrated against it's gender-based violence that may result in, or is likely to result in, physical, sexual, or psychological violence.
Okay.
Or psychological violence or harm. And we would like to add that in this declaration, it adds that whether the harm or violence is taking place in private or in public, or is condoned by the state or perpetrated by the state, all of these forms of violence are covered by that definition.
Okay.
So as of now, we notice that all the forms are involved. I think later on what I will do is I will come back to be able to talk more deeply on the different forms of violence, but the definition, as we have seen, is various forms of violence very clearly. I'd like to say that in as much as Cameroon we don't have the word violence in the Cameroon Penal Code, but we have provisions that kind of like discuss on violence. For instance, if we are talking about forms of violence, physical violence in the form of like battery, it is covered by the Penal Code. Okay. And even most forms of sexual violence are also covered by the Penal Code. But the word itself is not directly in the Penal Code.
Barrister, why is it that when we talk about gender-based violence, it is what comes to mind is about women being butchered, women being vulnerable? Is that limited to just women?
No, Mibel. Actually, when we're talking about gender-based violence, we are saying it is actually a form of violence that is inflicted on women or any other person because of its weaknesses, or it's a kind of like power discrimination.
Okay.
It's a power influence that plays in a society. And given it this way, it is not limited to women. If you treat a man as if because based on his weakness or inequality, it's a form of violence. And the reason why we lay more emphasis on women and girls is because of the consequences on them. Okay. And the fact that their numbers, a majority of them actually suffer from this violence.
And are more vulnerable.
And they are more vulnerable.
Okay, so Barrister, maybe you'd want to lucidly elaborate on physical violence, or maybe touch shallowly other forms of violence.
Basically, when we are talking of, like we said, the declaration talks of as one of the forms of violence, physical violence. Physical violence, it's what we go through daily.
Okay.
You see, in our society, you notice that even in a household, what happens is that sometimes if you have something to do with your husband, he might draw your head to say, oh, stop. He might even spit on you. He might, those are different kinds of physical violence. But it's not limited to that. And they are small, there's various small episodes that sum up to the violence, you understand? So it's not just one single episode, but more and more they come up and they sum up to this violence against women and girls.
Okay.
And what we are saying is that even though much we are talking more on violence against women and girls, but we should know that it also affects the men and boys. But we are more, especially as we notice that our association basically it's more for the enhancement of the rights of women and girls. And that is why we think we should place more attention on that. And also because of the fact that we have said, in short, more women and girls are suffering from it. And when we come to talk about the consequences of violence against women and girls on women and children, you will notice why more emphasis is on women and girls. Thank you.
Okay, madam, thank you very much. I think while you catch your breath, let's move over to someone else. Madam Chin Melo Mary Ann.
Yes.
That is it. Did I get the pronunciation rightly?
Yes,
At first I thought you were Chinese, ma.
No.
All right, you're the Secretary General of this noble association, which has international recognition, of course. So maybe you'd want to tell us about sexual violence.
Thank you, Mabel. It's my pleasure to be in this program today. Sexual violence, as my fellow sister has pointed there, is one of the forms of violence that exist against women.
Okay.
And sexual violence is very prominent.
All right.
Because it has to do with the health and well-being of the woman. And we find that more frequently women are sexually violated in many forms.
All right.
Firstly, I want to quote here the act of rape,
Okay.
which is very prominent in our society.
So does that fit into physical violence or sexual violence?
Sexual.
Okay.
It can be both ways, but
All right.
coming up very well in the
Sexual.
sexual violence.
Okay.
Because it has to do with the sexual organs and
Okay.
things like that. So we know that rape, as it is generally said, is an act of sexual activity with a woman without her consent, simply put. And we would like to state here that rape is not only between people that are not married.
All right.
Even in marriage, you can have somebody can be charged for rape.
And that is sexual violence.
Yes, yes, because you need the partners, the spouses, the other spouses' consent to have sex. So sex is negotiated somehow.
Okay.
You understand? At least it is something to procure pleasure, which each and everyone is supposed to have it at their convenience.
At their convenience.
Yes. So it is punishable. Even an attempted rape is punishable, and all of that we find that in section 2996 of the Penal Code, that punishes it with imprisonment from 5 years to 10 years. And I would also like to state here that other forms of sexual violence include incest, that is punishable by section 360 of the Penal Code. You have child sexual abuse, which is common too in our families. Uncles, nannies, using the female children and destroying their sexual organs and things like that is punishable too. We also want to state here that sexual harassment is very prominent in our society, especially in institutions like government offices, where women are obliged to do certain things in order that they should gain favors for their jobs. In school institutions, children female children are inclined to sex because they want to acquire marks. In many other milieus, yes, we find that harassment, it is any act that you do to a woman that will instigate her emotions towards sex. So sometimes they do it like a play, like a joke, but it is something. You find somebody just tapping a woman anyhow, just touching any part of a woman's body. It is not called for. That is violence. Yes, they do it commonly, thinking that it is something normal, but it is not normal. So we are supposed to let our children know that certain parts of their body are not supposed to be touched. Yes, and I will conclude here by saying that even prostitution, those families that encourage their girl children to go to prostitution, they are committing crimes. They can be charged and punished by the penal code.
Okay, Barrister Mary Ann, I have a small burden. Cameroonian authorities seems to be very repugnant to sexual marital violence. So how do we handle that? Because we have counted cases of people who go to local police authorities to report cases like this and they are chased.
I will want to first of all say that, Mabel, I am not a barrister. I am a registrar by profession.
All right.
Thank you. And I will say that any case, especially on violence that has gone unpunished, is because it is always kept behind.
In the background.
Okay. Yes, it is not brought to the authority, to the limelight. Yes. Any case that is reported is prosecuted because you find all those sections in the penal code that is handled in the court.
And I think I will be having a lot of viewers who will be asking or tempted to ask questions. So how then do we go about it?
It is simply to put your complaint to the right quarters. Yes, if you go to the state council and make a complaint there, it will be followed. If you go to the police station and the gendarmeries and make the complaint there, it will get to the right quarters. If you are found in the quarters and you are helpless, you come to the FIDA organization, they will direct you on what to do. Yes, it's the female lawyers, especially this organization, is specialized in cases like that.
That's right. That is quite relieving, and of course, that gives us an outer of hope. While a lot of questions keep lingering in my mind, Barrister Gladys Mboa, I think you've stayed mute for a while, madam. A lot has been talked. We have touched the sexual parts of violence, and of course, maybe you want to tell us a little about economic violence, which I think a lot of people are blunt about.
Yes, Mabel. Before I actually talk about economic violence, I just want to add on what Mary Ann just said. You said Cameroonians are reluctant to prosecute cases of marital rape. But we say the law punishes anyone.
Okay.
Yes.
Nobody is above the law.
Nobody is above the law. The law says anybody. There's no exception. It does not say except it is your husband, except it is your wife. Okay. So anybody who forces another person to have sexual intercourse with that person has committed rape, and that person can be punished. The thing is, our culture, the women don't want to complain because they don't want to spoil their marriages. So coming now to economic violence, I would say any form of violence, actually any form that denies women financial empowerment and independence is economic violence.
So can you cite
and these include they include not sending girl children to school, sending girl children into early marriages, denying women and girls their property rights because of some discriminatory traditional practices.
Okay, what about traditional practices? Like I'm in the West region, we are not permitted to will properties to female children.
Yeah, those are some of the traditions I'm talking about.
Okay.
Those type of traditions, they are actually repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience.
Okay.
And the law says such traditions should be discarded. They should not be practiced. So, because if you deny a woman her right to inherit property, you are denying her a lot of things. It is her human right to inherit, as well as it is the human right of her male sibling to inherit. So it is actually discriminatory and it is repugnant. So those are the things that perpetrate economic violence against women. When you deny women, again, the right to employment, you are perpetrating violence against them. When people, some husbands, they actually harass their wives at their workplaces just to impact negatively on their jobs, that is economic violence, because you can cause her to lose her job. Then some men, they refuse the women the right to own separate accounts, open bank accounts in their own personal names.
And what if you have signed for monogamy and joint account? How does that function?
Well, Mabel, there's no such thing as monogamy and joint account.
Okay.
There is monogamy and joint property.
Joint property.
Yes. Joint property is a right. And the law still gives people the right to open separate accounts in their names.
Okay.
So a woman has that right given to her by law to open a separate account in her personal name. It's just that the men are still chauvinistic and they don't want to permit women do that. So when you deny a woman that right, you are violating her human rights and you are perpetrating economic violence on her. When you deny a woman the right, or some people even ask women to account for every single franc that they have, or even go as far as asking the women to hand over their paychecks at the end of the month to the husband, that is economic violence. She is not independent to do with her money the way she wants. She cannot use it to enhance her own self. When we come to that, I will expatiate more. But those are examples of economic violence being perpetrated against women on a daily basis in our communities.
Maybe we'll have Barrister Time Colleen talk a little about psychological violence, because a lot has been touched or a lot has been talked on already, social, economic and physical violence. So Barrister, what have you to say vis-a-vis psychological violence?
Yeah, thank you. Now, I want to say first that emotional or psychological violence is like a sum total of all the violence, because at the end of the day, it plays with your emotions, it plays with your psychology.
Okay.
But then when you want to come up down to what it is actually, it is a very subtle form of violence against women, because many a times the form in which it is perpetrated, the victim face off doesn't really look at it as violence.
Okay.
You know, because they think it is much like, I mean, so much in love, this person loves me so much, and some of the things they're doing, because one of the ways that the person is going to be doing this psychology is playing on your psychology. Oh, I don't want you to be working with these friends. You're my wife. I don't want you with this friend. You start depriving your wife from having friends. Don't go to meetings, you know, talking her down. And sometimes, you know, they have this language, it's like, I don't even want this dress. Don't
You've
put
grown
on this
fat.
dress. Yes, you've grown fat. You know, just that sometimes, oh, your mother is a witch and stuff like that. There are days, okay, this food is not good, I'm not going to eat this. All those play on the psychology of somebody. And when you look at it, you know, it affects the emotion of the person, just like physical violence will affect the emotions of somebody, like economic violence will affect the emotions of somebody, or sexual violence will affect the emotions of somebody. So the emotional or psychological violence, sum totals all of this, it puts all of them, wears down the person physically, morally, and psychologically, because at the end of the day, you start looking inferior in the face of people, because at any, you don't know, somebody is like, oh, look at that one, the husband doesn't eat her food because she doesn't cook well, because that's what sometimes they will refuse to sleep with you. They don't want to sleep with you. I don't, you know, your mother is a witch, your father is a witch. I don't want your parents in this house. I don't want your friends. I don't want you to wear this dress. I don't want this kind of hair. I don't want this kind of, I don't
You're
need you to.
ostracized
Yeah,
somehow.
I don't want this makeup and stuff like that. I mean, she has a right to look good, to feel good with about herself. Makeup has nothing to do with anything. It's just, I just want to feel good. And then you start telling somebody this or that. So you're actually tearing that person apart psychologically without you know. And many a times when you do that to women, it's like, oh, my husband loves me so much, that's why he doesn't want me to work with this group of friends. He doesn't want me to wear this kind of dress. You think it's a form of protection, but it's a subtle way of violating your rights.
Barrister Caroline, I want to find out if actually psychological violence causes a negative ripple effect. Do you think you can be affected, the kids might be affected? How does it, stretch negative energy or affect other avenues of your life?
Very seriously, very seriously. When it comes to the kids, I always say they are the hidden victims of domestic violence. The children are always the hidden victims, because when you sit there and you in the presence of your children and your husband is insulting you, throwing all those insults, they are affected somehow, because and then they start seeing their mother in that picture that the father is trying to create, whereas that's not who she is, And then I don't want to go around my grandma because my grandma is a witch, because she heard it from the father, that the father saying the grandma is a witch, so she doesn't want to go there. Or you're too fat because my dad says you're too fat. You don't know how to cook. I'm not going to eat that food. Is not nice because my dad. So it plays on
some sort of a stereotype.
Yeah, and when it comes to the woman herself, it is very, very devastating to begin with, because I said it is very subtle, and so it's like it just keeps accumulating there, building up.
That's
She can't talk back. You throw those insults and she's there, and it keeps building. And so at the end of the day, it has multiple ripple effects.
That's right.
Because psychologically, it can give you find many women
breakdown.
Yes, who go to the hospital with blood pressure. You want to go find out where is the origin of this blood pressure. It's because of too much thoughts.
That's right.
About the psychology, the emotional torture that they are going through. They go through
nerves,
depressions and stuff like that.
Okay.
And many a times you see women moving, they're so they become loners, whereas that's not really who they are, but they can't fit in, because all these negatives that the husband makes them feel about themselves, they don't feel comfortable to be in the company of people, so they start looking like loners, like introverts and stuff like that. So all of that plays on their psychology, and at the end of the day, the worst is that it can end up to the breakdown of the marriage, because when it gets to a point that you can't take anymore, you just want out.
So, Barrister, lastly, let me find out, is there a slim gap between psychological violence and emotional violence?
Now, emotional, and because when emotionally, it affects your psychology. So the two play together. They intertwine somehow. They play together. So when they're working on your emotions, it is playing on your psychology. The way you look at it, the way you feel affects the way you look at things out. So the two intertwine.
Okay, we have landed on several angles already, and of course, I know there is this question bubbling in your chest. What actually perpetrates this violence? Maybe I want to find out from Barrister Gladys. Madam, tell us, what are the possible causes of violence in our homes, wherever?
Yes, Mabel, I think the causes are actually manifold. In our societies, we actually have this stereotypical mindset and belief that women are subordinate to men.
Okay.
Or that women are lesser human beings. That is what most of our customs make us to believe. And that is why they think they can treat women anyhow they like. Then again, you see, some people actually grow up experiencing and witnessing violence in their houses on a daily basis. And they actually grow up thinking that that's a way of life. They continue in their own homes.
They're stoical to everything.
So they continue in their own homes. They grew up saying it, they thought it's a normal thing, and they continue doing it. Then one other reason again is poverty.
Okay.
Poverty is a major reason why violence is being perpetrated against women and girls. Because most often in our communities, when you want to find out why, you realize a poor family decided to use a girl child as a medium of exchange to get money and solve their family problems. So they actually, because they are poor, they look at this woman and say, if we send this woman out and they bring us some bride price, it's going to give us some money, and they use that same money to sponsor her siblings, male siblings, while they sell her out as a medium of exchange. Then again, most girls, they get married at young ages to people who are far older than them. they look up to these men as their fathers. And so they begin to think, no, he has the right to correct me as my father used to correct me. So even when they beat them, they are there, they think that it is the right thing to do. He looks like my father. Then there's another aspect too. Some men, they suffer from inferiority complex.
Oh.
Some men just can't stand strong women. When they see a woman, their wife is trying to be too strong, they resort to beating, thinking that that's their own way to exhibit strength. So those are some of the things that actually promote this violence against women and girls. The principal one is our discriminatory customs, repugnant customs, which we are fighting against.
Okay. Maybe barrister, maybe you'd want to throw more light to, I keep calling you barrister, Madam Ching. Miss Ching Anna, maybe you want to tell us, or throw more light to what Barrister Gladys just said. Maybe possible causes of violence.
She has said the major ones, yes. And when we were talking before, you would see that just the fact that a woman from tradition or from customary rules has been put in a second place, it just flows like that to all other aspects of the society. So wherever a woman is found, they feel that the woman should take a second place. It's already violence. Even in the office, where you are supposed to do certain things, they feel that a man will do it more better than you. And some positions are already programmed just for men, even though women are qualified to have those positions. So we find that very, very frequent and common in our societies in all levels. So we are here to really say that those things are really discomforting to women, and they bring down the status of women. So they all include and make up forms of violences that women incur, even though some are not painful like physical, but they feel them emotionally, like my sister has already elaborated there. So, and it is very traumatizing. Even those emotional ones are very traumatizing than the physical punch that somebody will face. So I think that all what we have said here are the major causes that
could instigate violence.
Violence, yeah.
Very needful. Barrister Elizabeth, I have been, nursing this question in my chest. When you spoke a while ago, you said gender-based violence is absent in the penal code, and this prompts me to want to ask the question, why? Why is gender-based violence absent in the penal code? Or maybe I didn't get that well.
Actually, you got me right.
Okay.
It is absent in the Cameroon Penal Code, first for good reasons.
Okay.
There are legislators. How many women are in parliament is the first question, you understand?
Okay.
Because predominantly legislators are men, they are bound to make laws that favor men. And I think that also goes to justify even why some years ago one of the most difficult, harmful traditional practices went to parliament and it could not go through, namely female genital mutilation, which greatly affects young girls and women, you understand. It affects their health. But it went to parliament at the time that we had so many men as opposed to a few women. And that is why FIDA has, looking at that situation, tried to work on seeing how to increase the number of women in position, including in parliament, council, and even at the level of the Senate, which we did that we've been able to carry out civic education to train women, not only to support the men, but also to be able to ascend to position as parliamentarians, senators, so that they can be able to change some of these laws, and why not enact laws that are able to favor women too.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Barrister Caroline, please, I would want to ask us, because a lot of people might be caged somehow, mentally, psychologically. They don't know the right channel to go to, and sometimes they live in stereotype that if I spill the beans, my marriage will be broken. If I spill the beans, society will look down on me. So how do you think that barrier, that thick wall can be broken?
Yeah. Now, the fear of stigmatization.
Stigmatization.
It's what is actually killing us. It's what is really killing many women. And so, one of the things we want to encourage women is to break that cycle.
Okay.
Just report and be a neighbor's
Keeper.
So, if you see it, call the next person. This is going on. You know, many a times women have been rejected when they go up and they say, oh, that is a purely domestic, they go and settle your issues in the home.
house.
It's a husband and wife issue. But we have realized that in so many times, these women suffer. At the end of the day, they have a whole lot of devastating effects.
And some of them lost their lives.
I remember a very, very prominent case that came up on CRTV many years ago when the late Ansan was having this program with women. And there was this lady who was brought in on a wheelchair. She was married to a military person, and each time this man would beat her up. And she would run to the parents and they keep saying, don't disgrace us, go back to your home, go back to your home. Until it got to a point that he actually destroyed the spine, and so she was left on a wheelchair. And the next thing he did was he got married to some other person. And when she came there, I mean, everybody was literally crying. So this is what is killing us. So we need to get to that point to break this cycle, break the silence, speak out. And we need to have a good support system. Many a times women are the ones that actually make their other fellow friends suffer this, because they use it as a point of provocation, as a point of mockery, as a point of laughter. It's not time to laugh. It is a time for a good support system.
That's right.
So we need to create a good support system. We need to create a good reporting method of reporting issues, you know. So if we can't go to the place, and if the place can't really be of help to us, there should be another center that we could run to that will actually take that into consideration. And FIDA is right there doing that. So I want to use this medium to actually speak out to the women. Please don't keep silent about it. It is devastating to you, to your girl child, and it even to the male child, because they see that this is a way the man has to behave, and so they leave from there and go to their own homes, and it keeps going. The circle goes on. So please, even if you don't have, just want to, you see any female lawyer, run to that female lawyer and talk to them. Go to the courts, ask for any female registrar. They are willing to help. They are going to do something. So we need to break that cycle of silence. That is what we really have to do.
It is that time where we need to break the cycle. It is that time where we need to work in a synergy. It is that time of the program where I think I'm getting a little emotional. We need to get out of the studio to catch our breather. And stay tuned, stay glued to your television set. Do not zap the channel. We'll be right back.
queen, I'm a star. Black African diva, bizarre. Us women were shining like stars. Start from the bottom and rise to the top. You're wonderful, loving, and strong. Nothing is stronger than a woman's worth. I'm the piece of the puzzle that's missing, baby. I compete in the earth. Call me Sheba, but just come and marry my Keba. See, we run the world. Show some love to a strong girl.
Yes, televiewers, from the courtroom and now to the hospital world, of course. In our midst, joining us today, we have a medical personnel in the person of Mrs. Bakomo Janet, a medical personnel, of course, who is also the executive director for Health Hive Humanitarian Action. She is going to help us reveal some of very important aspects vis-a-vis the subject matter on board. And of course, if you think you are left out, you can send your reactions to the number you find on your television set. Of course, we do not want to leave our televiewers in the background. You can join the train, you can join the jet. Of course, we are flying on another jet in the program this morning. Madam Bakoma Janet, did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
All the way
much.
from my 16.
No, Moliko Koya.
So how was the journey to Bunduma today?
It was just great. Thank you for having me here, Mabel.
As a growing child, I always thought medical practitioners, when you see them in the house, they're always in their lab jackets. The impression had over time.
That's not true.
You look ravishing, mother.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we are looking at gender-based violence. So please, maybe you want to tell us violence against women and girls specifically. How hazardous, how injurious is violence against the girl child, or violence in general? How can it be psychologically, physically, or in whatever ramification?
Very much for having me here, Mabel.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, my panelists, for this great discussion. And to all the televiewers of High TV, thank you for watching. Like she has said, I am Ms. Bakoma Janet. I am the Executive Director of Health Hive Humanitarian Action, a medical personnel. In the NGO, what we do is that we advocate for health rights, the rights of health. Every human being, the rights of every human being.
All right.
With
So
regards
good
to health. Yeah.
Okay.
And to that effect, we run 2 medical facilities.
All right.
One in Moliko Boya, behind EcoBank, and another at Boya Town,
Okay.
adjacent the district police. So with respect to violence, medically, all forms of violence affect people medically,
Okay.
directly or indirectly.
All right.
All forms of violence, whether it's sexual violence, physical violence,
By
economic
directly
violence.
and indirectly, what do you mean?
For example, I'll just go straight to economic violence.
Okay.
When a woman per se is restricted from having a source of income, she is tied down to the man on everything that she needs. If she stays at home and the baby falls sick, they
She's
usually
dependent.
they usually come to the hospital with the baby running temperatures. The baby is anemic, but she can't do anything financially.
Okay.
She has to wait for the husband to come, and there are cases where it has led to death of the child. So that's indirectly, it has an effect. Economic violence has an effect on health. People have died because of that. So every form of violence has an effect on health. Emotionally, it has an effect on mental health. People get psychiatric because of the emotional pressures that they face at home. Like the barrister said, those are things that come on you. Your husband is talking to you, you are being insulted, you just pile them up. There are some people, naturally, they can't stand pressure.
That's right.
Yes. So it gets them start behaving as though
they are psychopaths.
Yes. So that has, emotional violence has a lot to do with that. So, and so people even get psychiatric, that you can get them to a psychiatric center
To amend the situation.
yes, just because of that. Also, it has to do with increasing their blood pressure. Women die, they have stroke because of all this. You ask a woman, why is your blood pressure on the rise constantly? She breaks into tears and starts telling you what she goes through in the house. And the husband can't support her, he can't support the children, and all that, she has to do that alone. Physical violence, medically, has a lot to play, because there are some women that go with some physical impairments, like hearing impairments. You do something, your husband slaps you, you think it's just a slap,
That is right.
but over time you wouldn't hear with that ear, and you come to the hospital. What happened to you? Your eardrum is burst.
Adverse effect.
Say the only thing I can remember is that my husband slapped me.
Me.
That caused you to lose your hearing, and that's a hearing impairment. Some develop glaucoma over time,
What's glaucoma?
a scar in the eye.
Okay.
Yes,
Due to physical puncture.
yes, puncture, or maybe a severe slap in the face. So over time, you to the hospital, you are not able to use maybe one eye. What nothing, what pierced your eye? Nothing. Are you sure you were not beaten? Oh, I can remember maybe 5 years ago my husband slapped me. So those things. And maybe pregnant women, when they are beaten, their pregnancies get aborted.
Okay.
Yes, so every form of violence has a lot to do medically, and girls should be advised, women should be talked to on regular basis, not to keep quiet when they are violated, when there is any form of violence, no matter how small it is. For example, just a slap gives you glaucoma over time. Yes, it may be treated and it may not be treated. So those are some of the things.
So how hazardous can sexual violence be? How destroying can it be?
Sexual violence is very first. It's traumatizing. If you meet cases of rape, they are traumatized when they talk to you. They are traumatized.
Some of them weep?
Yes, most of them weep. It leaves a scar in their mind. They never forget about it. Health-wise, it leads to the spread of sexually transmittable infections. Yes, especially HIV, hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is more deadly than HIV. That is what most people don't know, because body contacts and all that, you get to pick up these things, and you come to the hospital, you don't even know where it came from, but those are the things. Other sexual transmittable infection like syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and some of these sexually transmittable infections, when they stay too long in your system, they make you to become sterile. For example, chlamydia. A girl is raped, never went to the hospital, never reported it to anybody. You get married, over time you can't give birth because chlamydia has eaten deep into you. Even though you will take the treatment, but it's very challenging in the hospital to deal with cases of chlamydia for them to conceive. So those are some of the things.
Well, before we get on how you coach people on violence or victims of sexual violence, I think Barrister Elise, maybe you tell us some of the consequences you know of violence in general. What are the consequences? How dangerous is violence?
One of the main consequences, as the head personnel has just said, is death. In other forms like child early and forced marriages, what happens is that it may result to teenage pregnancies, and because of the age of the minor that they are sent for marriage, it may also result to things like fistula, which is also physical. And when it results to things like fistula with the system, broken down, what happens is that most of the time the man would abandon the girl and goes for another woman. And also we also have other consequences will be like, of course, when the lady, when a battered woman is not able to carry on an economic activity because of her health situation that is deteriorated, of course, eventually it just replicate the cycle of poverty in the family. That's because right. She cannot work, it affects the health, the income situation, and even the economic situation of the family. The children cannot even go to school. You can't imagine a situation that the mother cannot really provide. In that case, they stay on only what their father can provide. Whereas if the mother were there to be able to contribute and working, of course she would be able to have her own source of income. And one thing we wanted to just act, looking at the consequences, that we need to also know that most of the traditional practices we have said, the position of the law is that if we have a law, a tradition that is repugnant to natural justice or statutory law, then the statutory law takes precedence. That means that what? If there is any law on violence which discriminates, like some of those traditional practices,
right to practice by female children, some of those.
Some of the right to even education.
Okay.
Because when you send a child early to marriage, her education is completely compromised.
That's right.
She has a right to education. If we have a traditional practice that allows her to get married at an earlier age, which the Cameroon Penal Code puts the age of marriage at 18 currently. If you give somebody for marriage below the age of 18, will be punished. It's punishable by the Cameroon Penal Code. Okay. So some of these aspects, what we are saying is that if we have a tradition that permits a child to get married at the age of like 10, 12, then that tradition is contrary to statutory law. And of course, it cannot be practiced because it's discriminatory. Some other consequences will be like on physically, like we've talked of course, if we allow the child to get mature before getting married, of course she'll be able to know her rights in marriage, she'll be able to claim her rights in marriage. We really think that we are at a point that if we have to take the society forward, we have to be able to allow our girls, educate them to the extent that they can be able to not only be educated, but they can be able to earn a living from their own as a source of income, so that they can support their own families, so that tomorrow we can have a society that is more developed and free from poverty, because poverty is really a major problem. And also the medical personnel also talked about the transmission of HIV.
That's right.
Which I think we know how damaging it is. It is the one that we know, but it also has other consequences. And even when the woman becomes like traumatized, you see some of them moving in this society and just
stigmatization too.
Stigmatization, like we talked about the fact that if you go undergo fistula, you can have this problem because as you pass, it stings. So nobody really wants to come closer to you, but it's a thing that are avoidable. So we want to say that we should know that whatever be the consequence of the violence, it's never the fault of the survivor.
Okay, that's right. Barrister Gladys has been beckoning on me. I guess she has more to say.
Sure.
Mom, please, maybe you want to tell us. I want you to elaborate the adverse effects of violence on children, especially in a place like a home. The adverse effects on children.
Yeah, I think I will just go back to what I said, that when children in a home, they grow up experiencing and witnessing violence.
They might live what they see.
They live what they see. What you see is what you get.
That's right.
They will grow up knowing that violence is a way of life. Even in their own homes, the violence will continue. Even in society, the violence will continue. In schools, it will continue. Because I always say that our governments begin from the home. To have a good country, you must begin from the home. Upbringing of children is very important when it comes to this. When parents think that they don't owe it, they owe those children a duty to bring them up in the right way. So you don't do things that are wrong in front of a child, because that child will grow up replicating those things. So the consequences are, you see the deviant children all around the place, what they see from their homes, they think that it is good and they begin to copy it.
Barrister Mrs. Chin Anna, I'm in the company of baristas, so I think everyone here is. Mrs. Chin Anna, Madam, please, I want you to tell us a little about how people can break the chains to be able to be outspoken in society, because a lot of what kills women out there is not actually the act of, getting punches from the house. The inability to be able to spill, the inability to be able to confide in somebody. So in your own opinion, how do you think this can help, or how should they go about it?
Thank you, Mabel.
Okay.
This inability to speak out is as a result of the stigmatization that women go through, women and girls particularly. They feel withdrawn. They feel that they are outcasts. They feel that because of the violence that they have encountered, they are no longer human beings like other people. So they want to keep it and hide the issue. Some say they will not put it to the limelight because they want to keep their family image.
That's right.
Yes, they want to keep their family image. They want to keep it close.
So in that regard, is there a particular place where we report cases like this too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The women and the women empowerment and the ministry of women.
Family.
Yes, and the family. The delegation is charged to take care of things like issues like this, and they even have a safe home where if a woman is being violated, they can keep the woman there for some hours and refer the woman to the services available. Yes. So in the society we have those millions. It is just for us to know where to go to. The women organizations like FIDA are empowered to
train situations like this.
Like that. Yes, we handle things like that. FIDA runs a legal clinic to handle issues like this on daily basis in their office. Yes. So when a woman comes, we assess you and we do our legal part and send you to where it is. If it is a medical personnel, we send to medical, and all of that, they go together. So it is for us, we are here saying that let us speak out.
That's right.
Leave the issue of stigmatization. When you are a survivor and you are able to speak out, it heals you.
And it alleviates you somehow.
Yes. It is healing. You find it easy to help other people out. You speak out. You come to TVs, to programs like this and tell your story, and others they emulate and they want to come and say theirs. So by speaking out, it will help the society for this issue to be stamped, this violence to be stamped out of the women's code.
Okay.
Thank you.
Miss Janet, as a medical personnel, do you actually advocate for people to speak out?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Okay. We advocate for people to speak out because health is very important. And like I earlier said, every form of violence is affecting your health. Yes, so you have to speak out because you don't have two lives to live. You have just one life. So if it affects you in a way that you may either die or lose one of your body parts because you want to keep quiet, or you want to keep the name of your family, or because you don't want to be stigmatized, you're going to lose a lot of things because of that. Because, for example, if you don't speak out and let's say you lose an eye, you may lose a job because you can't see well and you can't help yourself.
And I know a lot of people might be asking that if I speak out, what next? It alleviates me, and then what?
Normally, whether you speak out or you don't speak out, people will talk about you. negatively most of the time. So it's better you speak out, because somebody is waiting for another person to speak out.
That's right.
When people start speaking out, many other people will come up and speak out. Yes, because it has a lot to do with the health sector. If you come to the hospitals, there is a lot we see because of this violence. I've learned a lot today about economic violence. Yes. Emotional violence. There is a lot. Most of the things that happen, that the cases deteriorate because of this economic violence. Most of the cases that come to the hospital. Some of them because of this emotional violence. The cases, you come to the hospital at the stage where you cannot be helped. You have to stay with that situation. Probably if you spoke out and you came up early, you would have been helped. So it's very important to come early, to speak out. Everybody, every lady should speak out. In the cases of rape, where young girls are being raped, it's good to go to the hospital. The first thing you do is go to the hospital, they run an HIV test for you, and then they place you on some antiretrovirals, which are not for HIV patients, but for 1 month, so that even if you picked up the virus, it would not replicate itself.
Okay, it repels it.
Yes. So if all the women know they can speak out, everybody that's sexual, maybe you're violated somehow, you speak out, it's going to help you. Maybe you came up with a fracture due to physical violence, your hand is broken. If you spoke out, you just say, no, I just fell, it's a small fall. They say that's what they say. It's just something small. Over time, if you're an adult, the bone can't come back in place. But for a child, you can help. But over time, for an adult, you have to live like that. Your activities will be hampered because you don't have 2 hands again. Yes, you have maybe 1.5 hands, something. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Miss Janet. Barrister Gladys, I think I've not had enough the economic consequences, and I'll need you to touch a little the economic consequences that violence may cause.
Yes, Mabel, I think economic violence is a very important aspect of what we are talking about today. It is not for nothing you see there's a lot of effort about economic empowerment for the women, because studies actually indicate that women are more likely to use their own money for food and other family necessities than drinks or cigarettes, than go to the bar and drink. So you just that alone tells you that once you put down a woman financially, you have put down that woman herself. You have put down the whole family.
That's right.
You have put down whole communities.
And the whole nation, if
And the
possible.
whole nation, because it starts from that small space before getting to the whole nation. Then it actually compromises developmental opportunities, because if a woman does not go to school, if she's not educated, as we are all talking here, that woman will not be able to realize her full potentials.
By so, what do you
We
mean?
always say women should take part in the political life of their countries.
Okay.
To be a politician is not a chocolate. It's not a piece of cake. To be a politician, you need to at least have some basic education. You need to at least know how to go about your campaign. You need to at least know how to raise money. And you need to know the people to touch when it comes to your campaign. So when you keep women backwards, they don't go to school, they are not educated, they go and get married like children, how do you expect them to take part in, to find themselves into those spaces? Because those spaces actually need some developmental aspects which are now lacking. Then economic violence, again, it promotes sexual exploitation, because and actually increases the risk of contracting HIV and AIDS. Because once you are poor, you keep them backwards, they don't inherit, they don't exercise their right to inheritance, they don't go to school, they don't have good jobs, they now resort to prostitution.
That's right.
To get money, with all the associated risk of contracting these diseases and even dying. economic violence, again, actually reinforces dependence on men.
That's right.
And forces women to remain in abusive relationships. Yeah, because
Because you want to fend.
you want to have shelter over your head. To some women, just that fact that you were married to somebody and he put a roof over your head, that man is now like God to you. Because you ask some of them, why are you still staying in this abusive relationship? And she will ask you, where should I go to? This man actually brought me here and gave me a better life. I'm even living in a permanent building. My parents had but a semi-permanent building. Now this man has given me a better life. Where do you want me to go to? So it reinforces that dependence. It actually, economic violence against, it actually takes away bargaining power from women. Yeah. Bargain across the counter shows that you people have equal force to talk. If you don't have your contribute to put on the table, how do you start bargaining? It makes you now just like a yes sir person.
Yes.
That you cannot talk.
Stooge.
Yes, they are building a house. Your husband is building a whole mansion. You cannot even contribute 10 bags of cement. And you think you must be able to bargain with him. Experience has shown that women who contribute are actually respected by their husbands. If you contribute financially, even though we know that women have their indirect contribution, which must be recognized, which always goes unrecognized, like the women who are not working in their own houses, or the house chores they do, people always look down on it, which we think is a big contribution. But we know that if you contribute financially, it actually brings some respect towards your person. And then when you violate women economically, it doesn't give them the room or the possibility to acquire property, to get good jobs. And then it affects their economic productivity and even the economic growth of the whole country. Because women can contribute a lot towards the economic growth of a country.
That's right.
So they should not be ignored. And we think these are some of the consequences, amongst others.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm tapping a lot from every angle. I think it is about time I take a walk out of the studio, to relieve myself a little. We'll be back after the break.
FIDA Records. Big Joe on the beats. Plus piercings.
Oh heck yeah.
Mr. Joe. 30 day time shot, but I go talk and more. Oh my God, I'm begging you, make you forgive and more. If you ask me today, say waiting be the truth of the matter. I know, no. Me I just duplicate what's in my eyes, see you, but I know, no. T'avais beaucoup d'ego, aujourd'hui t'es foiré. Beaucoup d'ego, aujourd'hui est ton lave. Petit commando, partout dans le quartier. Papa Pharaon, aujourd'hui t'es foiré, mais qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? 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 Toi t'étais si belle, on t'appelait la reine. De beaucoup de reins, mais aujourd'hui y'a rien. On te dit cherche l'amour, toi tu cherches les dos. T'as connu le vrai mais tu préfères le faux. La femme est une fleur qui éclore le matin, mais le soir va finir par faner. Y'a eu beaucoup de mecs qui aujourd'hui t'ont largué. Tu visais là-haut, mais aujourd'hui t'es tombé. On t'a brûlé la go, la cata du quartier, mais aujourd'hui t'es fini. Ouais, fauché, qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Ok. Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché?
Ask ya. Boys nowadays, them think them too smart. They show you love, them show you big cars, show you big house, show you big cars. But you know, I just fly. Follow them, I come with the money. See them girl, them I follow like a honey. And when the money finish, you go see them running. I leave you with the baby. L'eau de ton mariage, personne à respirer. Voici quelques mois, vous voilà, vous bagarrez. Partout dans les bars, partout dans le quartier. Voilà maintenant, vous voilà divorcés. Et qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché? Qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché?
Plus busy. You be that kind of man, you be the worry catcher. Free me and repeat them, don't tire complain. They put money for your head, oh. Get somebody die for your head, oh. I did sorry for you, tada, tada. I wash hand for you, mola, mola. So I can find palava. Tu dois tout net travail, them say go to school. You remain for God's yeah. Money for school fees. You take them, you jungle. Your friends them there for school, oh. You say you want point, yeah. Today them get motor. You sit there, they show me.
Mais qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché?
I must say with all credibility that the discussions has quite been beneficial to me. I don't know about you, but if I were you, I'll put all my didactic materials together and I do some of my relevant jottings. And of course, we are continuing with the subject on board. I will be finding out from Miss Time Caroline about how victims could go about, the prosecution process or the report process.
Now, one thing is the perception that people have is that legal procedure is cumbersome, and so they tend to give it up before they even start. But the one advice I want to advise them that is always try. Don't give it up, because there's somewhere along the line there is somebody who is going to listen to you. So if you come making a complaint, you make a complaint. If it goes to the police sends it to the state council, and the state council is going to send it to court. Now, many a times people don't know how to even write or what to say. And this one is where I want to advise you that the legal clinic of FIDA is very open to that. There's always somebody there that is going to attend to you. Come to that office. It is situated in Mutengene. Come there. They're going to help you write a complaint for you. So that way they get all your facts together, because many times, sometimes people will come and then they try to leave out some really, really vital issues. And then their case ended up looking like, miserable, whereas they have a really good case. So one thing I want to advise the victims is don't give up. Always try to make a complaint. Go to the police will send it to the state council, or go to the state council and they'll tell you where to go. But most of all, come to FIDA legal office. It is free of charge. There is somebody there that is going to help you. The FIDA legal aid clinic is open and it is free of charge to women who are so vulnerable and really don't have, and it's going to help them. So let them come there, and FIDA is going to take up.
Where is it situated?
It is situated in Mutengene now when you're getting out of Mutengene towards Tiko by the bridge, and it's going to be on your left where you see the Libra of law clinic, and by the side of it you have the FIDA legal clinic.
Okay, let me take a few reactions.
I want to make a point of correction.
All right.
Just to clarify something, sorry, not correction. Because actually she says it is free of charge. But the women out there should know that pro bono services are rendered to women who are actually poor. And you must, because that is why even the law on legal aid says you have to prove that you are poor Because she should not say this and people start driving their Pajeros and coming in front of FIDA office that we said that the services were free of charge. So pro bono is for women who are poor. This program is very important. Our legal aid clinic actually takes that too dear to our hearts. That's why you see we train even paralegals. As she is saying that some people don't know how to write. We train even paralegals and send to places where people cannot write, who can help them to write. And to show you why this is very important, you see this, even the t-shirts we are wearing shows that we are doing, this is awareness raising we are doing on violence against women and girls in partnership with the U.S. Embassy in Cameroon, to show you that it is something that even they take very seriously, and they think that they should assist civil society organizations who can go out there and help the women. So if you know you are actually destitute, you are broke, you come to us, we will help you.
All right. Okay, let me take some few reactions. This person is saying that, is there a special asylum for victims, madam? From Aminkem Julius. I think he's trying to say maybe a special asylum or a special place where victims
safe
home, where victims of violence could be kept for a while.
Yes, I know that Lukmef now runs a safe home in Boya, and the Women's Empowerment Center in Boya also have a safe home.
I want to add that we also have a one-stop shop at the CBS in Mutengene. Cameroon Baptist Hospital in Mutengene. It just went operational, and it's also they have it's a one shop that has everything. It has a safe home there.
Okay,
and so people can consult there too.
Okay, and this person from Jemda Pauline is saying that the fair barrister spoke about walking in circles. How possible can that be? I think it's directed to Barrister Caroline.
Right. So walking in circles. Now what I was trying to say here is, now when the mother is in the home and she's being abused by the father, the children are there to watch it. Like the president just said, you get what you see. They pick it up from there, and in their own homes, they continue with it. So the circle continues. We just keep going through that circle. And until we learn to break the silence, to make sure that we let people know this is wrong, it shouldn't be happening. We keep going through that every day, just walking through that. That's what I meant by walking in circles. So we just keep going round. The same events keep happening on a daily basis because we think it is okay. We think we just have to keep it cool. We just have to, like I said, giving a narration of that other lady that was beaten up by the husband. They do it for protection. It's this kind of age-old myth that divorce is a bad thing. It's an evil thing. I mean, I don't prescribe it, but if it has to get to that, because before it gets to that point, something needs to be done. Because even at the end of the day, this woman was not willing to divorce, but the husband ended up leaving her when she lost this, she was kept on the wheelchair. So at the end of it all, this is the end point that we are heading to if we don't break the silence. So we should avoid moving in circles, just keep walking round and round, hiding, covering up for issues that should be really spoken about.
And of course, we are gradually packing our bags out of the studio. So Miss Chin Ann, please, maybe you'd want to tell us, or do you subscribe to the idea, your last words, to the sentence or to the African adage that goes that violence is never an option?
Yes, violence is never an option. Yes. We are here to advocate that the society and women should be kept free from violence. They should be given a space where they can operate well to gain their futures, to gain their empowerment and everything, to have education, to assess themselves to the political life of the country, to do economic businesses, to do everything that can empower the woman. So violence is that aspect that inhibits, that disturbs the woman from attaining her objectives.
Okay, and to the president, what would you say, or would you advocate for the fact that violence is never an option?
Yes, Mabel, I think people should actually know out there that two wrongs do not make a right. And you don't take the laws into your hands. Because most often, when you want to find out why did you beat your wife, the man will tell you that she insulted me so badly, she spoke to me so rudely, and we are saying that beating her is not the answer. You have no right to take the laws into your hands. As much as we advocate that men should not violate women, we are also advocating that even women should not violate men. Because we know that violence is not only against women, but as we have been saying here, the reason why we talk more about women is because the percentage of women who experience violence is far too higher than the percentage of men who experience violence. So if your wife insults you, it's the same thing as you have the right to take her to an authority that can speak to her nicely or bring some sense into her head instead of beating her. Because violence will never solve the problem. Talking nicely more often has brought solutions than violence.
Okay. And to Miss I lost it, to Miss Elizabeth. So your last word, Ma, because before we pack our bags out of the studio.
I want to say that no matter the situation, the survivor is never at fault. Never in a scene of violence say she was actually poorly dressed, she contributed, she was found at a location where she was not supposed to be out, she was not supposed to go to the nightclub. Violence is not the answer, and the perpetrator and the survivor should never be blamed. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Miss Caroline,
Yeah.
your last words to waive the subject.
Yeah, and now to just waive this, there is one thing I want to talk to the women about. Now, we stand so strongly behind you to make sure that this violence is not perpetrated. But there is one thing caution we want to give out. Avoid provocation.
Okay.
Avoid provocation, because provocation is something that can push somebody to extremes. And by the time we are talking this, maybe your eye is gone, your ear is gone. You know, I keep telling women, when you go to the meeting house and for any reason you're running late, try, now we all have small phones that we can call, or even if you don't have them, when you come back home and your husband is asking you why are you late, just try to be nice to explain. Many a times you hear the women, I'm married to Jesus, Satan, leave me. You are provoking that man, calling him Satan. And the next thing, if he is somebody that has anger, that temper, he punches. So that's going to be my last word to the women. We stand strongly behind you, but please avoid provocation.
That is right. And please avoid provocation. I have benefited a lot, and I trust you too did. Of course, I've been your host, Mabel Kandem, sitting in the shoes of Gerard Nanji Yaounde. Of course, it was an exciting edition with this legal minds, of course, and of course with a medical practitioner on board. I benefited a whole lot. Until we meet again for next episodes on Friday, stay tuned, stay in the company of good health. Bye-bye.